I don't know exactly when.
When I was about 11, 12 years old, I think I realised.
I always knew, but I never really wanted to be.
I was 7 and I was watching an episode of Buffy.
I started to realise when I was about 13, 14.
Around maybe the age of 12 and 13 that I was into guys, but I convinced myself that I could just live the life of a straight man.
When I was little, I always wanted to go and play with the boys and hated Barbies. My sisters once, I used to shave the hair off them and draw little tattoos to make them into army men. So that's probably a little bit of an indicator, really.
It wasn't until I mentioned to my best friend, I was like, oh yeah, Faith's really pretty, I wonder if she'd be my girlfriend one day. And she just looked at me a bit funny and was like, you do know you're not supposed to like girls? And I was like, oh.
When I was 6, my mum became a Christian, but I thought, you know, I don't know, I was so young at the time, I thought it was normal Christianity. But since I've got older, I've realised that she was heavily into this big cult that she went along to.
I was in the changing rooms with some other boys, and they were all mucking around, like bending each other over, acting like they were having sex, basically. And I got offended by that.
They tried to make you think that it was a real spiritual war that you were in, and you were a real soldier of this spiritual war, and you had to, you know, fight it.
I was always the child that misbehaved at school, got detention after detention, kicked out, and nobody knew what was wrong because didn't have a bad home life, nothing like that. It was just, they knew there was something inside me that I wasn't telling anyone that was making me act that way.
You also had to fight homosexuality. That was something that they believed that Satan used to control people and to bring people to his side in a way, and I believed all of that. You know, I was like 6 years old when I first got into all of it, so I brought up thinking that being gay was evil and being gay was something terrible.
One of them just turned around and said, well, why are you gay? I was like, yeah, I am actually. And that's actually how I came out.
All the kids used to tease me and call me a lesbian, and I didn't even know what it was. I didn't know why they were calling me it or what it even meant, but I knew it wasn't a nice thing to be called.
I was content with like my personality. I didn't try and hide it. I was always tomboyish and didn't really fit in with all the girls that were doing their hair and makeup. And I was happy to be that way. I didn't try and act any other way.
I absolutely hated myself. I always just wanted to die forever. And yeah, I was just so unhappy about everything. Even after coming out of it, as lesbian and still having friends around, I still was so in pieces, like I wasn't a proper person.
Even though it's crap, and you shouldn't have to hide who you are, no one should have to do that. The way things are, it's probably, if you want to avoid being bullied and stuff, it's like the best thing to do.
I hated myself. I really thought I was some monster. I thought it was from the devil, you know. I thought I was the only person that was going through that, and I really hated myself. I had no self-esteem, no confidence in myself. I wanted to die.
When you've got something like that on your back, you're always kind of watching what you say and watching what you do and who you're with, and it's like a whole kind of burden.
I lived in a kids' home at the time. They found out about it. They had to write reports and stuff like this, so they were going to tell my mum. Well, I wouldn't have told my mum out of choice, but they felt they needed to tell my mum this.
It's a cliche, but you're always living that lie until you've kind of finally come out and told people. And to be honest, even the term coming out, I don't think is entirely accurate, because you have to constantly come out. It's not like there's one big kind of announcement and all of a sudden everyone knows.
Coming out as lesbian was a lot easier than coming out as trans. I think it's a much bigger thing for people to get their head around.
I think I tried to tell my mum about 6 times. She wasn't upset or anything when I told her. She was like, yeah, whatever, Hannah, you're just attention seeking, you know. Because I was that sort of child that would come out with a statement like that.
My dad's only really getting around it now by thinking that as long as I'm happy, he's happy. But my mum wouldn't have been happy with it at all.
Then I phoned up my mum, and I phoned her up, and I went, Mum, I'm gay, I love you, and I put the phone down on her.
My mum was fine. She would love me, whatever. And my dad, I think it's always going to be difficult for someone's dad, for a boy's dad, to kind of 100% accept it.
She phoned me and she went, "You're my son, I love you," and put the phone back down on me, kind of in humour kind of thing. And then she phoned me back up and she goes, "It's fine." She just said, "It's fine. You're my son."
It took me until I was 18 to tell my dad. And he turned around and said, well, it could be worse, he could be an Evertonian because he's a big supporter of Liverpool.
I was thinking I need to tell my mum because she just needs to know. But I was so scared. But at the same time, I've just got this attitude where like I don't really care. I was thinking if it's going to be a problem, then I'll move in with my sister because she'd be cool with that.
I decided there and then I'm not going to sleep tonight. I'm just going to ring my mum and tell her everything. So I left 7 missed calls at 3 in the morning, and then she picked up the phone and was like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" I was like, "Nothing's wrong. I'm gay." And she was like, "Okay." And then it didn't really sink in for her then, she was too tired or whatever, but the next day she rang me up and was in loads of tears, crying down the phone.
And I remember I was just sitting there like, and I said to my mum, "Oh, I've got a date on Saturday." And my mum was sitting behind me and she was like, "Oh really? What's her name?" And I was like, "Patrick." And then I turned around and then my mum, she just went, and then stood up and then just went in the kitchen. And I was like, oh my God.
She really didn't understand what being gay was. She thought, oh, is he going to start wearing women's clothes? Is he going to start being a girl? Is he going to start having sex in the street or something? She really had no idea.
My brother sent me a letter saying that he didn't want me to have any involvement in his kid's life.
By going back home afterwards and her seeing how I am, she understands now that what it means, and it doesn't mean I've changed as a person, it just means that I'm being the real me, I'm being my true self around her.
It's quite hard because we have been close, we're really close, and suddenly his point of view completely changed.
It was a really nervous one actually, because I remember thinking all day, right, I'll have to go and tell my parents, because I was on an inter-semester break and I decided I was going to tell them. And I'd been pacing up and down all day, and in the end my mum said, "Look, what's on your mind? Something's bothering you." And then I sort of came out to my parents.
My actual real family, my friends, don't have a problem with it, so it doesn't bother me too much, I suppose.
My parents were fine. I think they knew anyway, to be honest, so it wasn't a massive shock, and they've always been very supportive, so there wasn't any problems from that.
On the family sides, it's that's for me. That's their problem if they're not going to accept you, isn't it? It's kind of you missed out, on me by not accepting me.
Since I've come out as trans and managed to start medication and everything, it's unbelievable how much things have changed.
I know there's all those people that as soon as they come out they instantly flip and they're suddenly they look gay, they act gay, they talk about gay things, I wasn't one of them, I did that before, which is why I just always wondered that nobody had guessed.
Everything is exactly the same as it was before. My friends are still my friends, my family is still my family.
I feel like I can walk down the street and look people in the eye. I go out to parties and spend time with my friends, and I would never do that before. I would always just be in my room, on my laptop, never leaving.
YOLO.
The only thing I would say has changed is that I'm more happy about myself. I'm more confident about myself.
People realise that I'm Aaron first and I'm gay 4th, 5th. That's something that's not me. That's just something about me, kind of thing.
I didn't go from one thing to being another. It was just more of an openness. So apart from being happier in myself, I wouldn't say I'm massively changed.
I love myself now. I'm proud of who I am now. I'm proud to be gay. I'm proud to represent LGBT people everywhere,
I think discrimination is because people don't understand, they're uneducated on a subject. So if people know about it, and I'm just so casual about it, then there's no reason to discriminate, really. They just understand, oh, okay, yeah, that's just what he does, it's just the way it is. And they don't seem to have a problem with that.
The thought is much worse than the reality of having to come out. It's not as bad as you think at the time. Things won't change as much as you think they will. Now
that gay marriage is sort of legal now in this country, in 20 years' time, or 30 or 50 years' time, people will be like, oh yeah, it's just always been like that. No one's going to question it, because from the moment they've been born, they've just known that gay people can get married. And people will be like, what? They couldn't, back in the day, they couldn't get married. Why not? That's stupid. It's like now when you think, did you know whites and blacks weren't allowed to date? It's crazy talk.
What I went through made me the person I am today, so just be yourself, just have confidence in yourself, just believe in yourself.
In my opinion, everyone's great and they're individual, and it makes people who they are. And like, you do miss out if you don't let someone be there because someone's normal, just different.
I'm actually gay. I'm not a monster. I'm not evil. I'm not working for the devil. I'm actually just being me, you know.
You're born with it, really. You can't choose not to. You can try, but in the end you'll end up unhappy in some way. You may as well just do it and grin and bear it for a little while. It does get better.
It gets 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 better.